We're ringing the bell here at Riverside Lutheran Church in Wannaska, Minnesota, to mark the 150th anniversary of the end of the Civil War on April 9th, 1865. I need to know when it's 2:16.
Well, harder.
Okay, Steve.
Okay.
Okay, if you want to come in here, I'll read a bit about the... There was a battle on that morning of the surrender. The Battle of Appomattox Courthouse, fought on the morning of April 9th, 1865. It was one of the last battles of the American Civil War and the final engagement of Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia before it surrendered to the Union Army under Lieutenant General Ulysses S Grant. Lee, having abandoned the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia, after a 10-month siege of Petersburg, retreated west, hoping to join his army with the Confederate forces in North Carolina. Union forces pursued and cut off the Confederate retreat at the village of Appomattox Courthouse. Lee launched an attack to break through the Union force to his front, assuming the Union force consisted entirely of cavalry. When he realized that the cavalry was backed up by 2 corps of Union infantry, he had no choice but to surrender. When Lee decided he had to surrender, he sent a letter to General Grant. And then Grant responded. Grant's response to Lee was remarkable in that it let the defeated Lee choose the place of his surrender. And he chose the McLean House in near the Appomattox Courthouse. Dressed in an immaculate uniform, Lee waited for Grant to arrive. Grant arrived in a mud-spattered uniform, a government-issue sack coat with trousers tucked into muddy boots, no sidearms, with only his tarnished shoulder straps showing his rank. It was the first time the two men had seen each other face-to-face in almost 20 years. Suddenly overcome with sadness, Grant found it hard to get to the point of the meeting, and instead the two generals briefly discussed their only previous encounter during the Mexican-American War. Lee brought the attention back to the issue at hand, and Grant offered the same terms he had offered before. The officers to give their individual paroles not to take up arms against the government of the United States until properly exchanged, and each company or regimental commander to sign a like parole for the men of their commands. The arms, artillery, and public property to be parked and stacked and turned over to the officer appointed to receive them. This will not include the sidearms of the officers nor their private horses or baggage. This done, each officer and man will be allowed to return to their homes, not to be disturbed by United States authority, so long as they observe their paroles and the laws enforced where they may reside. These terms were as generous as Lee could hope for. His men would not be imprisoned or prosecuted for treason. Officers were allowed to keep their sidearms. In addition to his terms, Grant allowed the defeated men to take home their horses and mules to carry out the spring planting, and provided Lee with a supply of food rations for his starving army. Lee said it would have a very happy effect among the men and do much toward reconciling the country. The terms of the surrender were recorded in a document handwritten by Grant's adjutant, Eli S. Parker, a Native American of the Seneca tribe, and completed around 4 p.m. on April 9th. Lee, upon discovering Parker to be a Seneca, remarked, "It's good to have one real American here." Parker replied, "Sir, we are all Americans." As Lee left the house and rode away, Grant's men began cheering in celebration, but Grant ordered an immediate stop. "I at once sent word, however, to have it stopped," he said. "The Confederates are now our countrymen, and we do not want to exult over their downfall." Time? Okay, Steve. That's hard work. 1 minute was a killer.
I was going to say, when?
Oh, did we?
Shut the camera.
Right. One little final note here. Lee never forgot Grant's magnanimity during the surrender, and for the rest of his life would not tolerate an unkind word about Grant in his presence.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Very good.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Your feet coming off the ground.